Hey everybody, so I wanted to show you a game that I played in the Slav Exchange, which is the first time I've got a chance to play this since I started working on the ChessGoals Slav repertoire. And I just want to share with you guys what I learned from analysis because my handling of the position definitely showed some lack of understanding, so I'm hoping that what I can show you here will help you guys. So after bishop f4, we play knight c6, e3, and then this is the cool move of the repertoire, f6. And we're going for an interesting Slav rather than some sort of a boring sort of draw-ish kind of Slav that people always tend to be worried about. Our idea is we want to play e5. And if, for example, knight c3, that's exactly what we're going to do. Takes, 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 and we're going to end up with this d4 move. And it's an interesting dynamic position that has a lot of similarities, I've noticed, to like a Tarrasch defense even. But instead, in this game, after f6, my opponent decided they didn't want to allow me to play that, so they played knight f3. And in this case, we kind of switched gears and we chased the bishop around a little bit. So g4, bishop g3, now h5, we're threatening to trap the bishop, so h3. And here we go, bishop f5. Now, it's possible we could play the immediate h4, hoping to still transpose into our other repertoire, but I think the bishop f5 is probably the better way to go. Here, my opponent left the chess goals theory that we cover and played bishop to d3. The move order we actually covered in the course is knight c3, and here we go e6, bishop e2, king f7, castles h4, bishop h2, knight h6, rook c1, and king g7. So I had this line in mind when they played bishop to d3, and I was trying to, you can see, trying to incorporate that play. And I want to show you a little bit how that thinking process failed a little bit, and then some general patterns and ideas for these types of positions that we can work on. So here, of course, I chose knight h6 because I knew that that was a move that we wanted to play in this opening anyway, and it just makes sense. However, I mean, something I didn't really think about is just simply taking the bishop is a pretty reasonable idea. I mean, this is, after all, our bad bishop, and we would love to trade it with their light square bishop. So that's something that I definitely should have considered more that I really didn't. But even so, I still like this knight h6 because when white plays bishop to d3, it seems like they're maybe offering a trade and they want to capture. So instead he played a strange move that I didn't quite understand. It was bishop to h2. Suppose during the game I was thinking, oh, he must want to take, and then when I take back, he doesn't want to get hit. Or maybe this is against h6, but really this move's a bit of a waste of time. Because now I don't have to play h4 like we did in the main line. And but here, I think this is where I've started to go astray. I played king f7. Now I knew that this was a move from the line that we had played, and you can see already that this is a pretty big jump in the eval, so this is a pretty good mistake. What I was thinking was that I wanted to play something like knight to b4 and force him to trade so that I could play here. And I really was obsessed with this idea of putting the knight on f5 with like gaining a free tempo from this exchange. The problem is that right now it allows this, if we play knight to b4, it allows this check and we have to go right back. So I thought king f7 is a move I already want to play, and I wanted to follow that line and allow this, and so king f7, but this allows a big mistake. In the other line, when the knight is on c3 and they have played bishop to e2, this h5 square is not so vulnerable. But now, with king f7, this is an idea you need to be aware of when you play king f7 these lines, is we have this knight g5 idea, which is possible. So knight g5, and then takes, and then the queen takes, and we have to come forward. We don't have another good option here. He captures the bishop, and then after f4, he's threatening g5, and this is a huge mess, and we're much worse. I mean, it's possible that this file opens and a rook comes in, the queen is threatening to take. We're in all kinds of trouble here. This is just way bad. So when you think about playing king f7, it's important to note, does this capture work? And there's a few ideas that you can easily decide to help. One is, can the queen touch? if the bishop is still there, this knight g5 stuff is not such a big idea. And the other thing, and this ties in with the game, is that instead of playing this king f7, I think e6 is a much stronger move. And the reason is that if we do play king f7, this knight g5 stuff never matters because we can always just sidestep with king to e7, which was not possible in the line we went. It's clear that this e6 is a move that we definitely wanted to make at some point anyway. It's in the main line, it makes total sense, it solidifies our center, it allows our bishop some scope, gives our king some breathing room, supports the f5 square. It's clear that this is definitely the move that we're going to be playing here, whereas it wasn't so clear that the king is going to head to f7. For example, a way of playing that I really quite like is after, say, castles, we have bishop to d6, and if white takes, more on this bishop d6 idea because this is an important maneuver. We have queen takes, knight c3, and we can just castle along. After rook c1, we skip aside, just step out of the way. Our king is tucked away nice and safe, and it's incredibly difficult for white to even maintain equality here. The only move to do it is actually knight e1, which is not a move I expect to play. Almost any other move is giving us quite a sizable advantage here. So this idea of playing e6 and waiting a bit on moving the king out, pretty important idea and something you want to keep in mind. So king f7 is what I played. Luckily, my opponent did not find this knight g5 idea, and instead played another strange move. It seems they understood my idea of what I wanted to play, and so they're preventing it. But this is, again, just slow and a bit of waste of time. I played e6 now, and castles, and then I immediately jumped in with g4, which actually is the engine's top move, but I don't think it's the best move, or I don't think it's the right move. An idea that's only marginally lower in eval is this bishop to d6, which is something I wanted to take into account here. We just want to trade off this bishop, which is a key defender of the king side. And we have this bishop on f8 that's not really doing a lot. So we would love to trade these guys. So much so, I mean, we're super happy if he takes and we get to bring the queen back and we win in Tempe. That's great. But even after knight c3, we're going to take it, and we can give this check. And after king to h1, we can go rook g8. So say he plays like c4. We can just go, now we're ready for g4. We've got all of our pieces, everything brought over. We've reduced his attackers. Knight h4 is maybe the only move, and we can capture. And g3 is the only move that works here. That's not just totally crushed. And we are rolling. We're doing great in this position. Going back, if instead of rook to c1, white tries to open the center with e4, which is the main way that white likes to try to play, or the way to try to get counterplay against our king on f7, is e4, and we can just take it. And we're going to have a lot, excuse me, after knight e7, we're just going to put a knight here on the e5 square, supported by other knight, and we can just continue on with attacking. We don't care about this pawn really at all. We can go back and get our own pawn, or we can just continue on with the attack. So queen e2, knight f5, and we still have a lot of the same ideas of g4, maybe h4, things like this. But I really do like this idea of bishop to d6, exchanging these two bishops. Even though this is his quote-unquote bad bishop, and this is supposed to be our good one, we're happy to exchange it because his bishop's a lot more active, and we're wanting to attack the king. Instead, I played g4 immediately. I chose knight h4. Now my idea was to capture, and I really overlooked the biggest point of why g4 even works here. I was expecting that I was going to take, and we would end up with a crazy position, and that's sort of what we got. But I'm going to end up a bit in trouble if I don't play f5. f5 is actually a great move. It forces g3 when this bishop is entombed. He's basically down a piece for the remainder of the game. I just didn't even see this move, actually. We're forcing g3 because the knight's hanging, and this is the only way. and we can even capture, and we're going to be doing great here. Instead, I chose to take, which now I'm not so good now, allowing this check. I play king to e7, and he captured here, and then after this, trying to keep this file open, this allows this check, and I move my king completely out of the way. Knight takes is a mistake because my king is stuck here on d7. He should play e4. Again, that counterplay against my king in the center, try to open things up. Instead, he took here, a capture back, and he wins his pawn. He's a pawn up, but we're actually doing pretty fantastic. All of these open lines, we're going to get quick play. So I played knight f5. He went knight to d2, which is actually a huge mistake. I looked at some various lines. Rook g6 is fine, but rook h8 is quite nice. Rook h8 brings the queen over. We go king g7, which is actually a difficult move to spot. It took me a while to understand this. And the point is that we just want to go h7 when he doesn't have a good way to defend the bishop. And so if we just follow this line out, he can't play e4 anymore. It's too late. We can just capture. But even if instead he just brought us, say, a rook in, and we play rook to h7, he doesn't have this defense because we have e5, kicking the queen out. So that's why we play king g7 here first. E4 doesn't work, as I showed, and if we're just going to play rook over, he's forced to block with something in the h-file. This is just a brutal attack. Instead, I played rook to g6. He plays bishop to f4, I mean queen to g7, and knight to f3, which is just trapping his own queen. His queen has nowhere to go. Rook h8, and tried to block here, it doesn't matter. And then kind of the nice finish is I take with the knight, because he still can't even get his queen out. And the threat is, the threat's just rook to g2. Played e4 now, way too late, and just rook takes. But going back, a couple key takeaways, I think, from here. The first one is regarding this, when we played king f7, to note that we typically probably, oops, that's an interesting line, and we're going to draw more of them. Want to hold on to this king for just a little bit and wait just a moment, because we might have opportunities to cancel queenside. And e6 is a move we definitely want to play. So tend to play one at e6 before, and then later on, when they've castled kingside and we're trying to attack, this bishop d6 maneuver, even if we go as far as taking all of the extra tempi to capture it ourselves before we play this g4. I think these are key ideas, and I hope they help you as much as they're helping me. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.